We had the momentum of being the fastest growing city in Australia pre-COVID, and now we're going to have to fight for every investment, for every opportunity, for our business owners and their teams to thrive. We must fight for every single job. We have been disproportionately impacted, and we believe we need a proportionate response from all levels of government. This includes major stimulus projects such as rebuilding Central Pier in Docklands, a new tram link to unlock the development potential at Fisherman's Bend, the revitalisation of North Bank as part of Green Line. We need state and federal funding for these projects and many others to become city building, state building and nation building projects to drive our recovery. But I can't do this alone. None of us can address this outcome of the pandemic alone. We've had good support this week from the state government working with us to establish that $100 million Melbourne City Recovery Fund. We also need financial and moral support from our federal government and our Prime Minister to help us boost prospects, especially for small business owners and their teams. JobKeeper has been effective and it's very much an appreciated lifeline for so many people. However, we need to hear an acknowledgement from our federal government that they understand the disproportionate impact of this pandemic on the Melbourne city economy and know that they will invest with us on reviving our city and our economy, because it's also an investment in the national recovery. Our mindset needs to change. Here at the City of Melbourne, we acknowledge that we need to be far more responsive and far quicker and more hungry in the chase for dollars, for people and for jobs. Reform has never been an exciting topic, but we need to have a go at becoming a city of yes and making ground on what has been lost during this time of COVID. What would otherwise take weeks to assess and approve will need to be turned around in days, and that's what we're gearing up for now as we prepare for the reactivation of our city. We need to be saying yes to thriving businesses and jobs of the future, yes to world-class events and attraction, yes to green space and livability, and yes to feeling safe and confident about our future.
Daniel Andrews, what's he getting right and what's he getting wrong for the City of Melbourne?
Well, I am spending the majority of my day speaking with business owners who feel despair and anguish about where they find themselves and their team members and their efforts to respond and pivot during COVID and also to survive the lockdown and be able to reopen. In terms of our role and my role, I take very seriously the role of championing into state government and federal government the situation that so many of our constituents find themselves. And I think for our level of government and state and federal, we know that we need to be doing more, and we can and should, as I said earlier, be doing more. From my perspective, I've had a lot of feedback on what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong, what I should be pushing harder for and what I shouldn't. Some of it's been the most vitriolic and personal feedback I've ever had, but it's very clear to me that my role is to be a champion for the voices of the constituents in the City of Melbourne, but to make sure that I have the sort of relationships with state and federal government that means that we can negotiate some solutions at scale. The fact is that state and federal government have more resources at hand than we do, even as a capital city local government, and we need them to invest with us in bringing this city back to life. And that's why I'm happy to be fierce and fearless with the Premier in private discussions and in public advocacy, but at the same time, I need to be able to have constructive conversations to get outcomes, frankly, such as the Melbourne City Recovery Fund. $100 million is a fund that we've never had before in the City of Melbourne. We've never had a resource like that to be able to boost and accelerate our efforts to see economic development in our city. And I'm grateful to the Premier for working with me on that.
A question from Augustine's Hi, Sally. The pandemic has seriously impacted homelessness and job losses for women aged 50 and over. Nationwide, there are now over 400,000 women at risk of homelessness. What are you doing about this in Melbourne?
Well, it's a great question. And out of COVID, we've seen a lot of devastation, but we've also seen some stellar responses that have set new benchmarks that we don't want to come back from. And the response to rough sleeping in the city is an example of that. We have a situation now where every single rough sleeper who felt that their only option was to sleep on the streets of Melbourne pre-COVID, and I've got to call it out, it was a conundrum that we all accepted was somehow too difficult, too complex or too costly to solve, and the COVID environment has seen us address that. State government support agencies, City of Melbourne, now every single rough sleeper has safe accommodation, somewhere safe to sleep every night, receiving appropriate support services daily and being provided with meals. That is a stellar outcome. It's taken extreme circumstances, but it's also shown that we can do it when we have to, and when we have values-based decision-making backed up by appropriate resources and funding, we can actually make this happen. To the question, it was interesting because pre-COVID, we were actually preparing for pressure on homelessness and rough sleeping as a result of the bushfires. We'd seen that phenomenon happen following the 2009 bushfires, and we're expecting the same. So we've been gearing up for that. And now we see, of course, an increased pressure on financial hardship, on women in jobs, on domestic violence. And of our homelessness cohort, the 40% find themselves homeless for financial hardship reasons. 30% and growing, fastest growing, is domestic violence. And then beyond that, other issues such as substance abuse and mental health issues. So the COVID is going to create more pressure, and what we are saying together with state government, and also lobbying very, very strongly to federal government through the Council of Capital City Lord Mayors, is that homelessness has to be something that we put at the centre of how we recover, that we put at the centre of a dedication to progress on social conundrums that have seemed too difficult before, and that we've all reached new thresholds on caring for those experiencing homelessness, and we cannot move back from our new benchmark.
Walter Batt's curious to know, how are you planning to campaign in an empty city? What are some of the ways of communicating?
Good question. First, I'm going to read the guidelines to understand what is allowed and what isn't. And I acknowledge there's been a lot of discussion in the media through the MAV and other forums on what these restrictions mean. I think there are still some people campaigning for the elections to be delayed on that basis. But democracy is a really important part of Australia. I've been doing my online citizenship ceremonies, and a big part of that is the right to vote and participate, and our new citizens take that really seriously, and that's what we should do too. Luckily, we've all become Zoom champions during these months of lockdown, so I imagine it'll be more Zoom, Teams and other online forums. And I can tell you my mother is pretty pleased she doesn't have to stand at North Melbourne train station giving out leaflets this year because she's not allowed.
Sally, you've obviously done a great and energetic job as Lord Mayor. Tell me, Premier, is that next on the list?
No, thank you, Nick. As you've probably heard, I've still got to turn my attention to an election for Lord Mayor, which is only a few weeks away. And I'm sort of an accidental small p politician in local government, if you like, driven by passion a couple of years ago to put my hand up. And I absolutely have become an evangelist for local government and love being the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. And if I get a chance to do it again for 4 years at this pace, Nick, I reckon that might just see me out, but just focused on another 4 years as Lord Mayor. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Well, thanks, Sally, so much for your time. I hope everyone who's tuned in has got something from it. I certainly have. we'll need your stewardship through this next few months, I'm sure. So thanks again for taking us through what's going on in our fine city, and we'll see you around the city hopefully sometime soon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for all your hard work too. It's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally.